open with me to the book of Genesis, I'd like to introduce you to a few of my friends that I've brought this morning, if they don't fall down on me here. Our world that's described in the Bible is a world that was much different when God first created it during creation week. It's a world that if you were there, you would have great difficulty comprehending the staggering multiplicity of the flora and fauna. Flora, flowers, fauna, animals. If you went to the world that Adam and Eve lived in and the world that perished in the flood, you would have seen animals much like these. And this is a Brachiosaurus. This thing would have weighed 160,000 pounds. It would have been 100 feet long from head to foot. There's an interesting protuberance on its head. It was its nostrils. It breathed from the top of its head, which made it able to have no enemies because it could be out in the water as much as 50 feet of water and just sit out there and breathe and just kind of enjoy the water. It would be impossible for an animal like this to ever live on our planet as we know it today, because it's impossible to pump blood through a cold-blooded animal that weighs 160,000 pounds with present atmospheric pressures. That also has to do with the pterodons, those bat-like monster 40-foot winged dinosaurs have been found. Those things could never have flown on the earth because they're too heavy. But in the world that these animals lived and that we're going to look at in Genesis, it was a world that is very different than our world today. It was a world that is much like the medical treatment centers that are in some hospitals. I was reading the Journal of Medicine about hyperbaric treatment of people that are sick. And hyperbaric treatment is that you put them in a pressurized high density of atmosphere, of oxygen, and of warmth, and they heal faster. Well, the world that we're going to read about in the book of Genesis is a world that was a hyperbaric world. It was a world of great global tropical climate. The entire earth did not fluctuate more than 2 or 3 degrees in temperature globally. See, how do you know that? Well, as they dig up these monsters and look at the oxygen isotopes in their bones, they find out that the variance in the oxygen levels and the temperature levels and the growth patterns of the plant life made it that the whole world's temperature was very stable during this time. Also, in this hyperbaric, or we call it a water canopy and kind of a greenhouse effect, the animals, like these animals, which are basically reptiles, could grow indefinitely. You see, if you look in history books, alligators, those are living dinosaurs. And by the way, all animals that are ever created, all were started in Genesis. And the ones that survived the flood are here, and the ones that didn't aren't. And about half of them have become extinct. But alligators, up until the turn of the century, all of them were at least 20 feet in length when they found them in the tropical regions. Now, the greatest alligators are about 12 feet in length, unless you go to some freak alligator show and look at a giant whopper they found. Why? Because they don't have enough time to grow. They're killed so rapidly. Basically, reptiles grow every year of their life, unlike mammals. A mammal reaches its greatest size when it can reproduce, and from there on it's downhill from there. But a reptile never stops growing. And so if you're in a greenhouse effect and if you have unlimited vegetation, because plants grew to an incredible size. When the Siberian archaeologists were working in the Siberian coal fields, they found quick frozen mastodons or mammoths. In fact, they found millions of them. In fact, there are entire islands of Siberia that are made of nothing but sand and the bones of woolly mammoths. That's all the islands are made of. But when they went out there, they found frozen into the tundra and into the ice plume plants. Do you know what a plume plant is? A plume plant is those... You ever go through a subdivision where they have those fancy, look like sea oats or something? It's like a plume. It's just a thing sticking up with a feathery top. And they're about this high, or maybe a little taller. Do you know how tall they are in Siberia? 90 feet tall. Fast frozen in the tundra. How did they grow to be 90 feet high? How did animals grow to be 160,000 pounds, 100 feet long? How did they have enough food to eat? One woolly mammoth would take 700 pounds of vegetation per day. And there was one herd found in Siberia where 5 million of them were all squashed together. That, my friends, is a lot of vegetation, where willow trees only grow an inch a year in Siberia today. How did they do it? Well, let's look at Genesis